The doorway to destiny. Liam Dawson had always believed life was predictable. Wake up, work, repeat, like lines of code that formed the structure of his existence. In the quiet hum of his small apartment, illuminated only by the pale glow of his computer screens, the world outside felt distant. New York's skyline, rebuilt after decades of conflict and change, shimmered faintly through his window, but Liam preferred the controlled chaos of his virtual world. Then came the knock. Sharp, rhythmic, unmistakable. Liam's brow furrowed as he set his coffee down. It was close to midnight. No one visited him at this hour, or any hour, for that matter. As the knock persisted, louder this time, an uneasy tension coiled in his chest. Pulling himself up, he shuffled to the door, heart thudding like a drum. When he opened it, Liam's breath hitched. A figure, no, a being, stood in his doorway. Tall and cloaked in rippling fabric that shimmered like liquid starlight, the figure's very presence distorted the space around it. Its skin, smooth and iridescent blue, glowed faintly in the dim light. But its eyes, huge and swirling with an array of colors that seemed alive, fixed Liam in place. "Liam Dawson," the being said. Its voice wasn't spoken. It resonated through the air like a chord played on 1,000 instruments. Liam's mind scrambled for logic. It's a prank. A very expensive prank. But something about the figure felt undeniable, like reality itself bending to accommodate it. I'm sorry." "What?" he managed to stammer. "I am Envoy Carex of the Celestial Dominion," the figure replied, bowing slightly. "I come bearing news that concerns your lineage and your future." Liam blinked. "My what?" Carex extended an arm, and in its hand materialized a cube, a translucent, pulsing object that seemed to hum with energy. A hologram projected above it, a document written in alien script that somehow translated itself in real time. "Your great-uncle, Dr. Henry Dawson, passed beyond the stars 20 years ago. He became a revered figure in the Galactic Consortium, and upon his death, he left behind a binding will. You, Liam Dawson, are named as his successor." Liam's head spun. "Wait, what? My uncle disappeared on some secret project. People thought he died. You're saying he was off, in space?" Carex tilted its head, the alien features unreadable yet unsettlingly calm. "Correct. And as his successor, you have inherited a responsibility." The hologram shifted to show 4 figures, 4 women, aliens, each radiating an otherworldly beauty and strength. Their appearances were strikingly unique, one regal and poised, another sharp and calculating, the third wild with an untamed edge, and the last soft yet commanding. "These are the 4 princesses of Kaelora, a kingdom in crisis," Carex explained. "They are heirs to a legacy that holds the balance of peace in their galaxy. Your uncle advised and protected them. In his will, he named you as their guardian." Liam blinked again, completely overwhelmed. "Guardian? I don't even have a houseplant. You've got the wrong guy." Carex's voice remained steady, but a subtle edge emerged. "There is no mistake. Refusing this responsibility would not only dishonor your uncle's name, but would risk destabilizing Kaelora's monarchy. The consequences could ripple across the cosmos, reaching Earth itself." Liam stepped back, his mind racing. "This is insane. You can't just show up and throw intergalactic politics at me like it's my problem. I'm just a programmer." Carex's eyes swirled faster, a signal Liam couldn't decipher. "Humanity has long underestimated its potential. Your uncle believed you could rise to the occasion. You have 1 hour to decide." Liam stood there in stunned silence as Carex bowed once more and vanished, literally fading into the air. The glowing cube remained on his table, pulsing softly like a beating heart. A new reality. Liam slumped onto his chair, staring blankly at the cube. The apartment, once a safe retreat, felt oppressive now, as though the walls themselves were pressing him to make a choice. guardian to 4 alien princesses. It sounded like something out of the old sci-fi holos. All right. Think, Liam. Think, he muttered, running his hands through his hair. His great-uncle had always been the black sheep of the family, a brilliant scientist who vanished chasing wild dreams. But this was a whole new level. Liam's gaze drifted to his computer screens, now irrelevant. The life he knew, his coding, his solitary existence, felt small in comparison to what had just unfolded. He tried to rationalize it. If I refuse, what happens to Earth? What happens to me? Suddenly, the cube emitted a soft hum, and a hologram of his great-uncle flickered into view. Henry Dawson looked older than Liam remembered, but his voice was warm and familiar. Liam, if you're seeing this, then I'm gone, and the galaxy has placed its trust in you. You'll think you're unprepared, that you're ordinary, but you're not. Humanity has something the universe can't replicate, a fire that refuses to burn out. You'll be challenged, tested beyond anything you can imagine, but you'll grow stronger. Trust yourself, and protect them. The hologram faded, leaving Liam speechless. His uncle's words resonated deep within him, cutting through the storm of doubt. I can't believe this is happening, Liam whispered. He glanced at his duffel bag in the corner of the room, empty, but ready to be packed. Carex's voice echoed in his mind. 1 hour. With a sigh, Liam stood up. If the universe was going to throw him into a cosmic storm, he wasn't about to sit back and let it swallow him whole. He grabbed the bag and began tossing in essentials, clothes, his laptop, and a few mementos that tethered him to the Earth he knew. This better not be a setup, he grumbled as the clock ticked down. At exactly an hour, the shimmering figure of Carex reappeared, standing at the edge of his apartment. Have you decided, Liam Dawson? Liam hoisted the bag over his shoulder and exhaled deeply. Let's get this over with. Carex nodded, and with a wave of its hand, a swirling portal of light materialized. Liam hesitated for a heartbeat. Then, clenching his fists, he stepped through. The arrival on Kelora. Liam Dawson had never experienced anything like it. The moment he stepped through the shimmering portal, it felt as though his entire body was being turned into stardust and rebuilt molecule by molecule. A whirlwind of light, sound, and strange sensations surrounded him. Colors he couldn't name, echoes of voices that didn't belong to him. For a split second, he thought he might disintegrate entirely. Then, as abruptly as it started, it ended. Liam stumbled forward, gasping for breath, onto solid ground. He braced himself and looked up, only to be struck speechless. He was no longer in his apartment. The air was crisp and alive, humming with an energy that tingled against his skin. Before him stretched an impossible landscape. Cities carved from crystal towers, glowing forests that pulsed softly like breathing organisms, and skies painted in cascading hues of violet, silver, and blue. This isn't real, Liam muttered, eyes wide. It is very real, came the familiar voice of Carex, who now stood beside him, calm and composed. Welcome to Kelora, Liam Dawson. This is where your guardianship begins. The Celestial Palace. Liam's head swam as Carex led him up a gleaming pathway, the surface beneath his feet warm and glowing faintly. Alien structures stretched high into the sky, their crystalline walls refracting light into dazzling patterns. Beings of all shapes and sizes moved along the streets, some humanoid, others floating, crawling, or gliding in ways that defied gravity. They were watching him. Whispers rose like gusts of wind. Human. Why is he here? Is that the one? Liam adjusted his duffel bag nervously, feeling like an insect under a microscope. You didn't mention the entire planet would be staring at me. Humans are rare here, and the circumstances are unusual, Carex replied without looking back. Prepare yourself. The princesses are waiting. Liam's heart pounded as they reached the steps of a colossal structure, the Celestial Palace. It rose like a mountain of glass and light, its intricate spires and arches shimmering as if the building itself were alive. The gates opened silently, and Liam followed Carex through corridors that seemed endless and shifting, the walls pulsing like the veins of some ancient creature. The four princesses. At last, they entered an expansive chamber bathed in golden light. Liam stopped at the threshold, his breath catching as he laid eyes on them. The four princesses of Calora. They stood at the far end of the room, their presence commanding and otherworldly. Each radiated an aura that filled the air with tangible energy. The eldest stepped forward first. Her regal bearing and piercing gaze made Liam feel like a child caught misbehaving. Her silver hair cascaded down like a river of light, and her flowing gown shifted in color as she moved. "I am Princess Celera, the eldest of our house and keeper of the Celestial Council," she said, her voice clear and authoritative. "So, you are the human." Liam cleared his throat, suddenly aware of how rumpled his earth clothes looked compared to their shimmering attire. Yeah. Liam Dawson. Nice to meet you." A scoff echoed from the second princess, who stepped forward with sharp movements, her piercing blue eyes narrowing as she studied him. "This is absurd," she said. "I am Princess Vera, tactician and strategist of Calora. You expect us to believe he is the one chosen to guide us." Liam shifted uncomfortably under her glare. "Look, I didn't ask for this either." The third princess, wild and fierce in appearance with fiery red hair that seemed to flicker like flames, let out a short laugh. "He's nervous. That's good. It means he's smart enough to be scared," she said. "I am Princess Kyra, defender of our kingdom." She pointed a finger at him. "Prove you're not worthless, human, or I'll throw you off the nearest skybridge myself." "Friendly bunch," Liam muttered under his breath. Finally, the youngest princess stepped forward. Unlike the others, there was a softness to her demeanor. Her emerald eyes studied Liam with quiet curiosity, and a faint smile touched her lips. "I am Princess Leora," she said gently. "You look overwhelmed." Liam let out a long breath. That's one way to put it. The weight of the role. Celera's gaze sharpened as she addressed Carex. "Why did our father choose him? What possible purpose could a human serve here?" Carex bowed deeply. "Your father, King Orlan, saw what many others did not: humanity's adaptability and spirit. He believed that Liam Dawson, though unassuming, possesses qualities essential to your survival." "Survival?" Liam asked, voice cracking. "What kind of survival are we talking about?" Celera gestured toward a massive, glowing map that materialized in the air. It showed an intricate system of galaxies, with one section pulsing red like a spreading infection. "Our kingdom is under siege," she said solemnly. "A rival faction, led by the warlord Tyvran, seeks to destroy us and claim Calora's throne. Our father's passing weakened the monarchy, and now we are vulnerable. You, Liam Dawson, are to act as our guardian and advisor." Liam stared at the glowing map, his mind reeling. "I think there's been a mistake. I don't know anything about war, kingdoms, or, well, any of this." Kyra folded her arms, smirking. "Then you'd better learn fast." Vera frowned but didn't argue. "You were chosen for a reason, even if it eludes us now. If you fail, Calora falls, and so might the balance of the galaxy." Liam swallowed hard, the weight of their words sinking in. He wasn't just here to babysit princesses. This was bigger than him, bigger than Earth. He looked at their faces, Celera's determination, Vera's skepticism, Kyra's fire, and Leora's quiet hope. They were depending on him. "I'll try," Liam said finally, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. "I don't know how yet, but I'll figure it out." Celera nodded approvingly. "Then let us begin." As Liam stood in the golden chamber surrounded by alien royalty, one thought echoed in his mind. This is going to be the hardest thing I have ever done. Trial by fire. Liam Dawson wasn't ready. Not for any of it. The golden chamber where he first met the princesses was now far behind him. He stood alone on an open training ground, a massive arena suspended high above Kelora's glowing crystalline city. Beneath his feet, the ground was made of shifting energy, flickering between solid and translucent. Above him, the sky swirled with colors he still couldn't name. Around him, an audience had gathered, alien nobles, guards, and servants alike, all watching the human with thinly veiled skepticism. Liam felt like a circus act about to fail spectacularly. I thought we were going to, I don't know, talk strategy or something. He called out. Princess Kyra, the fiercest of the four, grinned from across the arena. She was already clad in form-fitting battle armor that looked both lightweight and indestructible. Her fiery hair whipped behind her like a living flame as she cracked her knuckles. You don't learn to lead by sitting in a chair, human, Kyra shouted, her voice carrying effortlessly. You learn to stand, to fight, and to adapt. Show us that your uncle wasn't wrong. Liam glanced at the staff they'd handed him, a sleek, metallic weapon that vibrated faintly in his hands. He had no idea how to hold it properly, let alone use it. You're joking, right? I can't fight. Kyra tilted her head, smirking. Then you'll learn, or fall trying. Before Liam could protest further, Kyra lunged, thrown into the deep end. It was like being hit by a hurricane. Kyra moved with a speed that defied physics, her armored form blurring as she closed the distance in seconds. Liam barely managed to scramble to the side, tripping over his own feet as her staff smashed into the ground where he'd been standing. The impact sent a shockwave rippling through the arena, and Liam tumbled onto his back. Gasps and chuckles echoed from the crowd above. Kyra sighed theatrically. Get up, Dawson. This isn't over. Liam groaned, his palms stinging as he pushed himself upright. What's the point of this? I'm not a soldier. You are our guardian now. Kyra snapped, advancing again. You don't get to be weak. If you can't fight for yourself, how will you fight for us? Liam barely had time to think. Kyra's staff came down in a blur of motion, and he instinctively swung his own weapon upward. Sparks erupted as the two weapons collided, and Liam felt the jarring vibration travel up his arms. The force nearly knocked him off his feet again, but he held on. Kyra grinned, showing teeth. Better. Liam didn't feel like he was improving. He felt like a rabbit cornered by a lion, but somewhere in his adrenaline-soaked panic, a spark of defiance flared to life. He remembered his uncle's words in the hologram. Humanity's strength lies in its adaptability. All right, Liam muttered, narrowing his eyes. You want me to fight? Fine. A human's ingenuity. Kyra lunged again, fast as lightning. This time, Liam didn't just react. He moved with purpose. Rather than blocking her strike head-on, he sidestepped at the last second, letting her momentum carry her past him. Kyra skidded to a stop, spinning around just in time to see Liam swing his staff low at her ankles. She leaped over the strike, landing lightly. Clever, she admitted, a spark of approval in her fiery gaze. Liam didn't stop. His mind raced, analyzing her movements, her patterns. She was faster and stronger, but Liam had spent years solving complex problems. In coding, you didn't brute force a solution. You found the weak point and exploited it. Kyra came at him again, but Liam was ready. Instead of trying to fight strength with strength, he ducked, using his smaller frame to weave under her swings. He noticed how her strikes left brief openings, split seconds where her balance faltered. Adapt. Exploit. Repeat. Liam swung his staff again, not to land a blow, but to distract her. Kyra blocked it effortlessly, but Liam immediately followed up by kicking a nearby pile of loose energy dust into her face. For a moment, she staggered back, blinded. The crowd fell silent. Liam didn't waste the opportunity. With a surge of determination, he swept Kyra's legs out from under her and raised his staff, pointing it at her chest as she hit the ground. He was breathing hard, sweat dripping down his face. But he'd done it. The arena was dead quiet. Then, slowly, Kyra let out a laugh. A real, unrestrained laugh that echoed across the training grounds. "Well," she said, sitting up and brushing the dust from her face. "Looks like the human has some fight in him after all." Earning their respect. Liam stood there, stunned. He wasn't sure if Kyra was laughing because he impressed her or because she was about to kill them. He glanced nervously at the other princesses, who had been watching from the edge of the arena. Sailora, the eldest, gave him an approving nod. "You learned quickly. That is more important than raw strength." Vera, the strategist, studied him with narrowed eyes. "You think differently than we do. That may be useful." Leora, the youngest, smiled warmly. "You did well, Liam." Kyra rose to her feet, towering over him again. For a moment, Liam braced himself for retaliation, but instead, Kyra extended a hand. He blinked, hesitated, then grasped it as she pulled him upright. "You're not useless, human," Kyra said, her grin fierce. "You still have a long way to go, but you've got guts. I'll give you that." Liam let out a shaky breath, exhaustion settling over him. "Is this how you treat all your friends?" Kyra chuckled. "Only the ones who matter." The path ahead. As the crowd dispersed, Carex appeared at Liam's side, his glowing form flickering faintly. "You are beginning to understand, Liam Dawson," he said. "Your journey here will not be easy, but today you showed them your potential." Liam wiped the sweat from his brow, glancing at the princesses, who were still watching him. "I didn't show potential. I just got lucky." "Luck is often the ally of those who adapt," Carex replied cryptically. "You will need both to survive what comes next." Liam looked out across the alien skyline, the weight of his new reality pressing on him. This was only the beginning. He had fought for his life today, but tomorrow might demand more, much more. He didn't know if he was ready. But one thing was clear. Liam Dawson wouldn't back down. Shadows of the past. Liam Dawson stared out at the alien skyline of Kaelora from the palace balcony, his chest still rising and falling from exhaustion. Below him, the city glowed like a living entity, rivers of liquid light threading through crystalline towers, forests humming with an almost musical resonance. It was breathtaking, but it wasn't home. "You fought well today," said a voice behind him. It was soft yet firm, carrying the faint weight of authority. Liam turned to find Princess Sailora, the eldest of the four sisters, standing nearby. Her silver hair shimmered like starlight in the breeze, and her gaze, calm and piercing, held none of the judgment he'd expected. "I wouldn't call it fighting," Liam muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. "More like panicking with style." A faint smile ghosted across Sailora's lips. "Panic is not the enemy, Liam Dawson. It is often the first sign of survival. But surviving alone will not be enough." Her words hung in the air, leaving Liam feeling small under their weight. "I'm still trying to figure out why I'm even here. I'm not a warrior. I'm not a leader. I write code, not histories." Sailora's expression softened, a rare moment of vulnerability breaking through her regal composure. "You doubt yourself because you cannot see the threads that brought you here. But know this. You were chosen not for your strength, but for the way you see the world, differently than we do. My father believed in that." Liam frowned. "Why did your father trust my uncle so much? What exactly happened between them?" Sailora's eyes grew distant as she turned to face the skyline. "That is a story of its own. Secrets of the King." Sailora led Liam through the winding corridors of the palace, the walls glowing faintly as if responding to their footsteps. Eventually, they stopped in front of an enormous door etched with symbols that pulsed with a deep blue light. "This room holds our father's greatest secrets," Sailora said, her voice almost reverent. "Few have ever entered it, but if you are to guide us, you must know the truth." With a wave of her hand, the doors groaned open, revealing a vast chamber filled with ancient relics, holographic maps, and an enormous crystalline console humming at its center. Liam followed Sailora inside, his footsteps echoing softly. The air here was thick with a strange energy, as though the room itself were alive with memories. "This was my father's war room," Sailora explained, gesturing to the glowing maps that hovered in midair. They displayed not just Kaelora, but entire galaxies, some of them marked with spreading red territories. Before his death, he fought tirelessly to keep our kingdom united and our enemies at bay. Your uncle, Dr. Henry Dawson, was his most trusted confidant. Liam's brow furrowed as he approached the maps. Why? What did my uncle do for him? Sailora touched the central console, and a hologram of King Orlan flickered to life. The former king was tall, his features strong and regal, his eyes warm but burdened. Beside him stood another figure, Henry Dawson. Liam's uncle looked much older than Liam remembered, his face lined with years of experience, but his gaze sharp and unrelenting. Your uncle, Sailora began, was the mind behind many of our technological advancements. He saw patterns in chaos, solutions where others saw failure. When Kaelora was first attacked by Tyvern's forces, it was Henry who devised the countermeasures that saved us. Liam stared at the hologram, feeling a strange mixture of pride and confusion. He did all of that. My family didn't even know where he was. He made sacrifices, Sailora said softly. He knew that secrecy was necessary to protect both Kaelora and Earth, but even he could not anticipate the darkness that was coming. The rising threat. Sailora activated another map, and the red-marked territories expanded across the galaxies, spreading like veins of corruption. Liam's stomach tightened at the sight. "This is Tyvern," Sailora said, "a warlord who controls vast regions of the Outer Rings. He seeks not only power but annihilation of our kingdom, of our alliances, and of all who oppose him." Liam stared at the map, his voice quiet. "Why? What does he want?" "Tyvern believes in domination. He views kingdoms like ours as weak because we value cooperation over conquest," Sailora replied. "Our father held him back for decades, but with his death, Tyvern grows bolder. His forces move closer every day." Liam swallowed hard, his fingers clenching into fists. "And you think I'm the answer to this? I'm not my uncle. I don't know how to win wars or save planets." "You are not your uncle," Sailora said, turning to face him. "But you are human, and humans possess something Tyvern cannot comprehend." "What's that?" Sailora's eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. "Your ingenuity, your defiance, the ability to stand when others would fall. My father believed that humanity's greatest strength is its refusal to surrender, even in the face of impossible odds." Liam let her words sink in. For the first time, he felt the faintest flicker of purpose, a spark deep inside him, one that refused to be extinguished. A new resolve. Liam moved closer to the console, staring at the red territories spreading across the galaxies. "So what's the plan? If I'm supposed to help, I need to know how." Sailora's lips curled into a faint smile. "We have a fleet. We have technology. But we lack the creative thinking your kind is known for. Tyvern's forces outnumber us, and his strategies are predictable. You will help us see the gaps in his defenses." Liam nodded slowly, his mind already whirring. This was different from coding, but the principles weren't so far off. Find the patterns, break the system, exploit the weak points. "You're asking me to be your hacker," he said with a wry smile. Sailora inclined her head. "Call it what you will, Liam Dawson, but you may be the key to saving Kaelora and yourself." Liam exhaled slowly, staring up at the glowing map one more time. The pressure was immense, but for the first time, he didn't feel paralyzed by it. "All right," he said, turning to face Sailora. "Let's get to work." As Sailora led him out of the war room, the weight of his new role settled onto Liam's shoulders. He was no soldier, no king, and certainly no hero. but he was human, and maybe that was enough. The first test. The war room's glowing maps and holographic displays haunted Liam long after he left the chamber. He spent the night staring out at the alien skyline of Kaelora, the soft hum of the city below reminding him just how far from home he really was. Sleep had been impossible. How could he rest, knowing an entire kingdom's fate rested on his shoulders? It felt absurd. He wasn't a warrior or a leader. He was a guy who spent too many late nights fixing bugs in his code while downing bad coffee. And yet, here he was, a stranger on an alien planet, expected to save not just 4 princesses, but an entire civilization. Adapt and survive, he kept telling himself. That's what humans did best, right? As the first rays of Kaelora's dawn bathed the crystalline city in soft hues of gold and violet, Liam knew one thing for certain. Ready or not, he was running out of time. A mission from Celara. Liam was summoned to the main hall early that morning. The princesses were already gathered, their expressions unusually serious. Princess Celara stood at the center, her regal poise unshaken. To her right, Vera's calculating gaze studied Liam. Kyra paced restlessly, clearly itching for action, while Leora offered him a small, encouraging smile. Liam Dawson. Celara began, her tone commanding. The time has come for you to prove what you have learned. There is something you must retrieve for us, a relic, hidden within the Krynox caverns on the outer edge of Kaelora. Liam blinked, thrown off. Wait, caverns. I thought I was going to be strategizing, not spelunking. Kyra snorted a laugh. You can't lead if you don't understand the world you're trying to save. Consider this your first real test. Vera crossed her arms, her gaze sharp. The relic we seek is no ordinary trinket. It is the Shard of Orlan, a fragment of my father's crown. Without it, our people will not fully recognize us as rightful heirs to the throne. So, Liam said slowly, this shard proves your legitimacy. Celara nodded. Yes, it is more than symbolic. It contains an energy we cannot allow to fall into enemy hands. The caverns are dangerous, but the shard must be retrieved before Tyvern's spies locate it. Liam let out a slow breath, already feeling the weight of their expectations pressing down on him. And you want me to get it? We will not send you alone, Leora said softly. Kyra will accompany you. Kira grinned fiercely. Don't worry, human. I'll make sure you don't get eaten. That's comforting, Liam muttered, feeling his stomach knot. Into the Krynox caverns. Hours later, Liam found himself flying aboard a sleek Caloran transport ship, gripping his seat as it glided through alien skies. Beside him, Kyra adjusted her armor, clearly unfazed by the upcoming challenge. You're awfully quiet, she remarked, glancing at him. Cold feet already. Liam sighed. I'm still trying to figure out why anyone thought this was a good idea. I'm not a hero, Kyra. Kyra smirked. Heroes are just people who don't quit when things get hard. You're here, aren't you? Before Liam could respond, the ship banked sharply, and the view ahead made his jaw drop. The Krynox caverns were carved into the side of an immense mountain, glowing faintly from within. Massive crystalline spires jutted out like jagged teeth, and dark openings yawned ominously, as though the mountain itself was alive and watching. This place doesn't look friendly, Liam muttered. Kira grinned. It's not. Stick close to me, and try not to wander off. The descent. Inside the caverns, the air was heavy and still. The walls glowed faintly, casting eerie blue shadows that flickered as Liam and Kira moved deeper. The path was narrow, winding sharply downward, and Liam had to fight the urge to turn around. Tell me again why we're doing this, he whispered. Kyra, ahead of him, snorted. Because we need that shard, and it's not going to fetch itself. They moved in silence for what felt like hours, the only sound their footsteps echoing through the cavern. Liam's hands tightened on the torch-like device Kyra had handed him, its beam of light slicing through the darkness. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. Suddenly, Kyra raised a hand, signaling for Liam to stop. He froze, his heart pounding. What is it? Kyra's gaze was fixed ahead, her expression hardening. We're not alone. Before Liam could respond, a guttural growl echoed through the cavern, low and menacing. From the shadows, a pair of glowing red eyes appeared, then another and another. Liam's blood ran cold. Oh no! The Guardians awaken. The creatures emerged from the darkness. Massive beasts with crystalline exoskeletons and razor-sharp limbs that clicked against the stone floor, their glowing red eyes fixed on Liam and Kira as they moved closer, their grottles vibrating through the air. What are those things? Liam shouted, stumbling back. Crinlings, Kyra spat, drawing her blade. Guardians of the caverns. They don't like uninvited guests. One of the creatures lunged, its limbs slicing through the air like blades. Kyra met it head-on, her sword flashing as she parried the attack. Sparks erupted, and the cavern filled with the sounds of clashing metal and snarling beasts. Liam, Kyra shouted, her voice sharp. Move. Liam ducked just in time to avoid a swipe from another crinling, its crystalline claw slamming into the wall beside him. His torch clattered to the ground, and he scrambled back, his pulse thundering in his ears. What am I supposed to do? He yelled. Survive. Kyra shot back, slicing through one of the creatures with a fierce yell. Liam's mind raced. He couldn't fight like Kyra, but he could think. He scanned the cavern, searching for something, anything, that could help. That's when he noticed the stalactites hanging above the creatures, their crystalline tips glowing faintly. Kyra, he shouted, get them under the ceiling. Kyra glanced back, understanding flickering in her eyes. You'd better have a plan, human. Trust me. Liam replied, grabbing his fallen torch and hurling it toward the cavern ceiling. The light illuminated the stalactites just long enough for Kyra to drive the creatures beneath them with a series of strategic strikes. Liam picked up a loose shard of crystal, aiming carefully. Come on. With all the strength he could muster, he hurled the shard at the ceiling. It struck a weak point, and the stalactites cracked and broke free, crashing down in a cascade of razor-sharp debris. The crinlings shrieked and scattered, the impact driving them back into the shadows. The cavern fell silent. Liam collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. I can't believe that worked. Kyra stood over him, her blade still glowing faintly. Not bad, human, she said, offering him a hand. You think on your feet. That's a start. The shard. They found the shard deep within the heart of the cavern, a glowing crystalline fragment embedded in an ancient altar. It pulsed faintly with a light that seemed to resonate through the stone. Kyra carefully retrieved it, holding it up to the torchlight. The shard of Orlin. Your uncle would have been proud. Liam managed a weak smile. Let's get out of here before those things come back. As they made their way back to the surface, Liam couldn't help but feel something shift inside him. For the first time since arriving on Kalora, he felt like he'd earned his place. He might not be a warrior, but he was starting to understand why he'd been chosen. Humans were good at surviving. And Liam Dawson wasn't about to quit now. A throne of shattered trust. The journey back to the Celestial Palace was quiet. Liam sat in the transport ship next to Kira, the shard of Orlin resting securely inside a reinforced case between them. It pulsed faintly with an ethereal glow, as though the crystal itself was alive and aware of its return to power. Kyra, her fiery hair damp with sweat from the battle in the caverns, leaned back in her seat, arms folded across her chest. She regarded Liam with something he couldn't quite place. Respect, maybe. Or was it amusement? You surprised me back there, she finally said. Most people panic and die in the face of crinlings. You actually fought your way out. Yeah, Liam muttered, staring out the window at Kalora's skies, now streaked with violet as the sun began to set. I'll add fighting cave monsters to my resume right next to debugging software bugs. Kyra smirked. You might be more useful than I thought. For the first time since stepping through the portal days ago, Liam felt like he accomplished something real. He wasn't a warrior, but he was starting to believe in his own ingenuity. Maybe, just maybe, he could be part of saving this kingdom after all. But as the palace loomed closer, glowing like a beacon atop its crystalline perch, an uneasy feeling settled in Liam's stomach. Something was wrong. Whispers in the palace. The moment Liam and Kira entered the throne room, it became clear that their return had stirred something darker in the air. The other three princesses, Salara, Vera, and Leora, were already there, their expressions tense. Around them stood members of the royal court, alien nobles draped in elaborate robes, their gazes darting to Liam with suspicion and unease. What happened? Liam asked, glancing between the princesses. Vera stepped forward, her icy blue eyes narrowed. While you retrieved the shard, news arrived from the outer regions. Tyvern's forces attacked one of our border colonies. Liam's stomach sank. Were there survivors? Salara's calm exterior cracked just enough for Liam to see the worry beneath. Few. Tyvern has grown bold. He knows our throne is vulnerable. Leora's soft voice broke through the tension. There's more. Liam turned to her, and his heart skipped a beat when he saw the sorrow in her green eyes. What do you mean? Kyra answered, her voice sharp and edged with anger. There's been a leak. Someone within the palace has been feeding Tyvern information. That's how he knew to strike the colony, and where to hit hardest. Liam froze. You're saying? There's a traitor. The room fell silent. The princesses exchanged a glance, one heavy with unspoken doubt. It would seem so, Salara said finally, her voice steady but cold. And now, the court begins to question everything, including you, Liam Dawson. The weight of suspicion. Liam blinked, stunned. Me? Wait a minute, I just got here. How could I possibly? Vera interrupted sharply, her gaze piercing. You arrived mere days ago. Tyvern strikes now, for the first time in weeks. Convenient timing, isn't it? Liam felt his frustration rise, but he forced himself to stay calm. I didn't even know Tyvern existed until yesterday. I've been dragged through portals, alien caves, and crinlings. How am I supposed to have betrayed anyone? The murmurs in the court grew louder. Liam could feel dozens of alien eyes on him, each gaze filled with suspicion, as though they were probing him for cracks in his story. Salara raised her hand, silencing the room. Enough. Vera, your concerns are valid, but Liam Dawson has proven himself thus far. He retrieved the shard when many of our own warriors could not. And that means nothing, Vera shot back. Tyvern is cunning. He could have planted him to earn our trust. Liam's fists clenched at his sides, anger bubbling beneath the surface. I'm not working for Tyvern, he said firmly, his voice cutting through the noise. I didn't ask for this job, and I didn't want to fight monsters or risk my life. But I did it because you needed me to. For a moment, no one spoke. Then, unexpectedly, Princess Leora stepped forward. Her voice was soft, but resolute, like a melody carrying over a storm. Liam speaks the truth, she said. He risked his life for the shard. That is not the action of a traitor. Vera's gaze shifted to Leora, sharp but thoughtful. You're certain? I am, Leora said, meeting her sister's eyes without hesitation. We must look elsewhere for the traitor. A plan to unmask the traitor. Salara stepped forward, her commanding presence once again calming the room. Enough of this doubt. Tyvern seeks to divide us, and we cannot allow him to succeed. Until the traitor is found, we must be vigilant, and we must act. She turned her gaze to Liam. You have a mind unlike ours, Liam Dawson. If you truly wish to help us, then I have a new task for you. Liam straightened. Name it. Uncover the traitor, Salara said. Your kind sees what others do not. We need fresh eyes. And you, more than anyone, are an outsider to these court politics. You will look where we cannot." Liam swallowed hard. "You're asking me to play detective in an alien palace?" Salara nodded. "Precisely." Kyra clapped him on the back, nearly knocking him off balance. "Cheer up, human. It's better than fighting Crinlings, right?" Liam wasn't so sure. He glanced around the throne room, his mind racing. Somewhere in this palace was someone betraying the kingdom, feeding information to a warlord who wouldn't stop until Kaelora burned. The thought chilled him. But what scared him even more was the feeling that whoever the traitor was, they were already watching him. The search begins. Later that evening, Liam sat in his chamber with the shard of Orlin glowing faintly on the table before him. Its pulsing energy seemed to match the rhythm of his thoughts, erratic and unsteady. "Great," he muttered to himself, running a hand through his hair. "A software engineer turned alien spy hunter. I didn't sign up for this." Still, he knew he couldn't back down. Salara had been right. Tyvern thrived on division, and the longer the traitor stayed hidden, the weaker their kingdom would become. If Liam wanted to help the princesses and prove his innocence, he needed to find answers. He glanced at the small databed Kyra had slipped him earlier, filled with records of palace staff, movements, and security reports. It was his first clue. "This is just like debugging," Liam said under his breath, steeling himself. "Find the flaw in the code. Follow the trail." Outside his window, the skies of Kaelora darkened to a deep indigo, stars shimmering like distant fires. Somewhere in the vast halls of the palace, a traitor was waiting, one step ahead, and Liam Dawson was about to step into a game he couldn't afford to lose.